Hey everyone, welcome back for another video, continuing the 2019 complete Blu-ray collection one shelf at a time series. We're looking at today shelf number 9. Let's get going. So kicking things off with an excellent film, we've got David Fincher's Fight Club. Next up we've got Final Fantasy VII Advent Children Complete. The complete just basically means it's the director's cut. If you never played the video game that came out back in 97, you probably won't have a clue what's going on in this film. I think it's half decent though. I thought it was nice to see the characters back anyway. And I am very much looking forward to the remake that's coming out on potentially on PS5, maybe PS4, I'm not sure. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Next up, we've got a Disney Pixar classic, Finding Nemo. Next up, we've got a Japanese war film. This is called Fires on the Plain, directed by the Japanese auteur Shinya Tsukamoto. This is actually a remake of a film made in the 50s as well. Next up, we've got a horror film, Firestarter, based on the Stephen King novel, of course. Here we've got First Reformed, a great release from last year. Next up, we've got a Chinese film. This is called Fist of Legend, starring Jet Li in his prime. This is considered by a few people to be one of his best films. It's actually kind of a remake of the Bruce Lee film, Fist of Fury, although even though he plays the same character, the film isn't entirely the same, and to be fair, it comes into its own, and it's truly a really great martial arts film. Next up, we've got another release from 88 Films in their Asia film range. This one's called 5 Element Ninjas. So this is another Shaw Brothers title. This is one of my favourites, actually, in this Asia range. It just like exemplifies Shaw Brothers' sort of kung fu filmmaking. It's really good, but well worth checking out. Next up, we've got a more contemporary Chinese film. This is Flashpoint, starring Donnie Yen. It's another martial arts film. It's pretty good. This is much more Donnie Yen going into MMA-style martial arts. So it's a bit different from some of his other works like Ip Man and what have you. Really good, though. Really worth checking out. Okay, next we've got a film called Flesh and Blood from the great director Paul Verhoeven. I believe this was his first American-made film, starring, of course, the late, great Rutger Hauer. This is a fantastic sort of medieval epic, but as per Verhoeven's, his sort of traits, it's completely over the top with violence and gore and action, which makes it an awesome film. Next up, we've got a steelbook release of the film, the 80s classic Flight of the Navigator. This is from Second Sight. They are actually re-releasing this film soon again. It's supposed to have a new sort of 4K scan or a new upgrade anyway. Not 100% sure if I'll grab the new version because I didn't find too many issues with this. Classic film though, classic 80s film. Next up we've got The Florida Project. This was a good release from 2017. Next up we've got the classic, which is The Fly from director David Cronenberg. Potentially one of the best remakes of all time, I think. This is probably my favourite film from this director as well. Jeff Goldblum obviously makes it too, but yeah, what a classic. Another release from the 88 Films Asia range. This one's called The Flying Guillotine. I mean, with a title like that, how can it be anything but awesome? Another awesome film here. This one's from John Carpenter, of course. The Fog. I tell you, in the 80s, John Carpenter just absolutely knocked him out of the park. Every single film. Absolutely awesome. This one's a real classic. Here we've got a Russian film. It's called The Fool. This is an American release, though. Unfortunately, it is Region A locked. And I don't believe it's available to buy in the UK. There might be a DVD, I'm not 100% sure. Which is a shame, really, because this is a fantastic piece of Russian contemporary filmmaking about a man fighting against the corrupt system in order to try and save a lot of people's lives. Really, really good film. Here we've got a bit of football hooliganism. It's the Football Factory, probably Danny Dyer and Nick Love's best film, I'd say. Next up, we've got Tom Hanks in probably his most iconic role, or one of them anyway. This is, of course, Forrest Gump. Next up, we've got a bit of a surreal film. This is called The Fountain, directed by Darren Aronofsky. Hugh Jackman flexing his actual acting muscles as opposed to his normal muscles that he would flex when playing Logan. This was actually a decent film. I really quite enjoyed this. It's got like three sort of timelines running parallel to each other, although separated by thousands of years. Really, really odd film, but worth looking out for. Next up, we've got the Complete Friends collection, the TV series. This one was actually a Christmas present I bought for my wife a while back because she absolutely loves Friends and I am fond of it myself. As you'd expect, contains all the seasons, all the episodes. There's a booklet, as you can see there, with sort of detailing each episode and bonus discs and features and what have you. Was really quite blown away the first time we watched this because they really went to town on the Blu-ray and it looks so much better than it used to and how we used to watching it on TV. Next up, we've got the original 80s horror classic, Fright Night. This one was put out by Eureka. Here we've got The Frighteners with Michael J. Fox. This one is a pre-Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson film. I really quite like this one, though. I watched it when it first came out and it's always stuck with me. It's quite an enjoyable sort of horror comedy. Next up, we've got a great release from Robert Rodriguez. This one also partially written and starring Tarantino, of course. It's From Dusk Till Dawn. Originally, I actually bought this film as part of the trilogy box set, but I had to sell the sequels because, I'm going to be honest, they're pretty rubbish. And that's being kind. The first one, though, is just a classic in its own right. I love how it builds this road movie and then the genre basically just completely flips on its head and changes halfway through the film. If you've never seen From Dusk Till Dawn, check it out. It's really good. Picked this next one up quite cheap. It's called From Paris with Love, as you can see from the director of Taken, so that's Pierre Morel. John Travolta's quite good at this. It's just a fun little action film. Nothing great, but nothing terrible. Next up, we've got a Korean War film. This one's called The Front Line. This is really good, actually. It's really well made. The war scenes, the action sequences they made, phenomenal. How much effort they obviously went to. If you like sort of international cinema and you like war films, definitely want to check out. Next up, we've got Fruitvale Station. This is from the director of Black Panther. Starring Michael B. Jordan, as you can see. Now, I bought this one about a month ago and I'm still yet to watch it. I have heard good things, so looking forward to checking this one out. Next up, we've got the Harrison Ford classic from the 90s. This is The Fugitive. This is actually the American release that I imported because it worked out cheaper than buying the UK release, which is quite bizarre in itself. I also read a review on Blu-ray.com that the picture quality of this release is actually slightly better than the UK. So it was like a win-win situation. Classic film though, I really like this one. Next up, we've got a release from Artificial Eye. This is Michael Haneke's Funny Games. This is actually a remake of a film that the same director made about 10 years previous. He just decided to make an American version so it'd be more accessible to audiences. It's brutal, this film. It's not an easy watch. It's a well-made film, but what can I say? It's just brutal. Next up, we've got Fury. And then we've got Brian De Palma's The Fury. This one's an Arrow release. Next up, we've got a region-free American release of the Gamera trilogy. So as you can see, we've got Guardian of the Universe, Attack of the Legion, and Revenge of Iris. These are sort of kaiju-style monster movies made in the 90s. And yeah, if you like Godzilla, then you probably enjoy these. Next up, we've got The Garden of Words. This is an anime film. It's quite a short film. It's only about like half an hour, 40 minutes long, from director Makoto Shinkai. Really looking forward to checking out his new film because I think his work's excellent. I think his new film's called Weather With You. Not 100% sure on that. Sounds like a song by Crowded House. I'll have to check on that one. Next up, we've got Gattaca from the HMV Premium Collection. This is a great science fiction film from the 90s. This next release is from BFI. As you can see, it's called German Concentration Camps Factual Survey. It is a documentary, basically, that was filmed at the time after the Allied forces had liberated Germany. And yeah, it's a difficult watch to say the least. I think it's something that realistically everyone should watch at some point in their life. It's not easy to get through knowing that all the footage is 100% real. Yeah, that's probably all I can really say on that. Okay, next up we've got the absolute classic British film starring the legendary Michael Caine. This is Get Carter. Here we've got Get Out. Looking forward to checking out Jordan Peele's new film Us. Haven't picked that one up yet, but I will be doing soon. Next up we've got possibly my favourite anime film of all time. This is the original Ghost in the Shell. Absolutely blown away the first time I ever watched this film, which was probably in the late 90s. Yeah, it's so ahead of its time, and it's it's just so well made. It's beautifully animated, and I actually love the soundtrack to it as well. Yeah, it's such a great film. I would recommend anyone to check it out. Next up, we've got the big Hollywood remake of Ghost in the Shell. Being such a big fan of the original anime, I was expecting not to like this, and I actually watched it, and it was not half as bad as some people had made it out to be. They changed too much in like the story to my liking, and they changed aspects which just didn't need changing at all. But all in all, it wasn't actually a bad attempt. Yeah, this was all right. Next up, we've got the British film Ghost Stories. I thought this was a pretty cool little horror film. Here we've got A Ghost Story. I know that some people were put off by this film. It was pretty divisive. It split people's opinions a lot. I really liked this film. I thought the simplicity of it was awesome, and how the timeline just continued and he just stayed in the same spot. And the music, yeah, I thought it was really good. Here we've got some absolute staples of my childhood. Ghostbusters 1 and 2. I love both of these films. I probably prefer the original, but I've got nothing against the second one. A lot of people hated it at the time, although I think people have grown to love it now. Haven't got the one they remade recently. I must say I watched that and I didn't particularly rate it. Absolutely love these films though. I've seen them so many times. They're just great. Next up we've got an old school horror film. This is a British film again. It's called The Ghoul, starring the legendary Boris Karloff. And last but not least for this shelf, this is a Korean film. It's called Gifted, released by 88 Films. This is a pretty well-crafted sort of film about a murderer. And yeah, it's really worth checking out. And there we have it. So that's shelf number 9 complete. Thank you very much for watching. Yeah, 9 shelves so far down in this video series. We're not even halfway through the alphabet yet, but we are getting there. So for some reason this video has lasted like 5 minutes longer than they normally do, so I'll shut up right now, say thank you for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.